Hello, welcome to the Viewpoint. I am Mamadou Mboj. In this program, we try to probe behind the headlines and dive into the nuts and bolts of issues. Since the establishment of the fish meal factories in Gunjur, Katong and Sanyang, tensions have occasionally flared between local activists and environmental groups about the factories, regarding whether they are polluting the environment or they're causing overfishing. And when these things flare up, obviously the Ministry of Fisheries and the National Environment Agencies were all involved in it. So today, to help us dive and delve into the issues proper, I have two guests. I've got the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries, Dr. Bamba Banja, and I've also got Mr. Ibrahim Minty. He's the chairman of Home for Wild, an organization, an environmental organization dedicated to protecting the wild. Gentlemen, welcome to the Viewpoint.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Minty,
Yes.
when the issues of pollution came up in the environmental agency, the National Environment Agency, closed these places down, and they did a thorough assessment and then decided to reopen. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, for me, as I'm concerned, it's a different point. That one is for Khartoum and Tujan. For us, our organization based in Sifo, and the community of Sifo were so concerned because on the 1st of the October, we found that millions of fish die in large numbers, which have never happened in our area. So it's a cause for concern for all of us to see what's going on. That's the time we inform the fishery and water resources, fishery and NEA to see how best they can address the situation. Yeah.
All right. So when they contacted you, they wanted you, fisheries, you're part of it, to address the situation. What did you do? Were you aware of any such contacts?
Personally, or at the official level, no. I have seen it in social media, but with collaboration with NEA, our staff at the Department of Water Resources went there and collected samples of the water to analyze. The analysis was done, and the results so far, preliminary findings, indicate high level of contamination of microorganisms. At this time of the year, in the rainy season, it is very common to have increased level of contamination due to water runoffs and due to other pollutants. So the results of the water quality analysis, as I said, this is what the results have indicated. But notwithstanding, our scientists, they have also indicated that further testing of the water quality needs to be done.
But did you ever find out about the cause of the large amount of death of this fish?
Well, as scientists, we don't lie. Scientists don't lie. You must carry out investigation and then come to a conclusion. So once that is not concluded, we cannot say anything concrete, anything definitive. Yes, this is the situation, but still we are looking into the causes or the cause of what is happening or what had happened. You see, the time of the year, the temperature, you look at other parameters, really. We have to understand also that we are now in an era of climate change. We understand and we know that a difference in sea temperature rise can have detrimental effects on the habitats, on the marine ecosystem.
Yes, but let me just ask
We
this.
also know that low concentration of oxygen can also have negative impact on the ecosystem.
Yes, but my question here would be, these runoffs you're talking about, the contaminants at this time of year, would they ordinarily cause large amounts of fish to just die on the beach or seeing them in the water? Would it ordinarily cause this?
May not ordinarily cause it, may not. But if you may wish to be informed or reminded, when we were kids, we were told that it's not good to consume oysters during the rainy season. But they will not tell you the reasons behind, because probably they cannot explain further. But we know,
scientific age now.
Yes, but we know that during the rainy season, we have high levels of contaminations coming from water runoffs, coming from animal feces, animal dung, going into the waterfront, into the shore. When we were implementing the Senegal or Gambian Sustainable Fisheries Program, we have a project, the Shellfish Sanitation Plan, to support the tri-oyster women. What we did, we carry out sanitary shoreline survey, which includes taking regularly water quality samples for analysis to determine the level of coliforms bacteria. But that research was going on for 3 years, and we were able to come up to map out areas where you can harvest oysters all year round, areas where you can harvest oysters only during the dry season, and areas where permanently you cannot, whether irrespective of rainy season or not rainy season. So we know that microorganisms, especially the bacteria causing this kind of undesirable situation, is very high during the rainy season. But notwithstanding, I think still further investigation needs to be done for us to be able to come up with something concrete, to be able to advise the community and advise policy or decision makers.
Thank you. Mr. Minty, yes, you talked about the large amounts of fish found dead there, but you really had no idea what caused it. For instance, it could have been caused, we are hearing that there were the merchants, those who come to sell their wares, sometimes the factories wouldn't buy them, but they will also dump it somewhere. In that sense, you cannot blame the factories, can you?
No, before answering your question, I just want to ask a question, if it's allowed me, because to my surprise, if permanent secretary of fishery, millions of fish die within the Alahin River, he is not aware of it, just like it's really confusing. Because they are the first department or organization, or what I can say government institution I inform. I call Department for Parks and Wildlife.
Did you write a letter? Or
No, this is an emergency.
You called them?
Yes, when they call me, I say, well, things like they cannot just depend only phone call. You have to go on the ground. I have to drive down to, it fall on Sunday.
Who did you talk to?
I spoke to Mr. Sidibe. Is Sidibe? I don't know whether Sidibe's name is there.
Department of Fisheries.
Fisheries, Sidibe. Do you have a Sidibe there?
Yeah, Momodu Sidibe.
Yes, I spoke to him. I explained the situation. He told me that, well, we received information from one of our representatives from within Gunjur, wheresoever, 2 days back. I said, 2 days back, fish are dying in this large number. You don't leave office to come and see. You have to come and see the force. We even expect the minister to come down and see how many kilometers. Millions of fish died. And the reason why we say this one is not like a dumping in the sea. These are tilapias with normally furrow and the rest. Those ones cannot survive in the oceans. They are only in the creek and the small riversides. So when we find out, we call fishery, we call Department of Parks and Wildlife, we call the other side called NEA. But NEA told we have a meeting at Genoy, but tomorrow morning we will send some of our guys to come. Thank God they come, and we meet them, we go to the ground, they see, they took sample. And they promise us that they're going to inform all the stakeholders We say other side, the customers, will they come and take their samples? We don't expect to see. This can lead, nobody knows what the cause of the death. It can be environment, it can be poaching. But what we suspect is now, if these fish are dying like this, bats start eating eyeball of some of the fish, they stop eating, they don't eat, they find them all lying there, we suspect. If it is a poison, as time goes on, you see bat dying. So we leave it like that. We are waiting for their results. We never had information. After calling for 4 days, Fisheries never contact us. Somebody in the village informed me, saw a vehicle going to the beach and following them and find them and say, this is nature. Human being can die, fish can die.
Yes. So Dr. Banja, I mean, earlier you said that there's still some scientific work being done. Then again, to really clarify things for us to get to the bottom of things. But if that is the case, why have we got these fish meal factories open? After all, we still do not know what is causing some of these things. They could be responsible.
Well, I have said at the beginning that scientists, we don't lie. As scientists, you don't lie. When you don't know, you don't feel ashamed to say, I don't know. But
coming to NEA gave them a clean bill of health when they reopened them.
Coming to your issue, fisheries is a very important sector in this country. Without a doubt, we all know that. For obvious reasons, probably the time will not allow me to elaborate more as to the importance of the fisheries sector in the overall national socio-economic development.
So what's our policy? What's our national fisheries policy?
We have the principal policy objective is to ensure the rational and sustainable management of the fisheries resources. That's our #1 fundamental policy objective. But also we have got other policy objectives which include the participation of Gambians into the sector, the development of the industrial fisheries sector, the development of the artisanal fisheries sector. By artisanal, I mean small-scale fisheries, and many other policy objectives, including the participation of Gambian youths, particularly women.
So you include all of this in your decision making?
So these policy objectives are aligned with overall national development plan, the goal for the fisheries sector, which is to ensure that we have a vibrant fisheries sector through research, employment creation, and contributing overall to national socio-economic development.
But do you include all the stakeholders in your decision making? It is quite important. For instance, the artisanal fisheries industry, were they included in deciding whether to give these licenses to these fish meal factories, for instance? Were they part of the decision making?
We have a policy objective to develop the industrial fisheries subsector. We have fish processing plants in the Gambia.
How many? Where? How many fish processing plants?
Which are processing fish and exporting. We have Pelican Seafood, International Pelican Seafood. We have Rosamond Trade. We have Hansen Seafood.
These are Gambian companies?
Formerly.
Are they? What I do not understand. Are they Gambian companies, or is it that foreign investment?
They are foreign investment.
Foreigners have come in to invest.
Foreign investment.
So, but for us, our concern here would be to protect the artisanal fisheries industry.
We have a responsibility to protect the fisheries sector, whether artisanal or industrial. We have the overall mandate to protect, manage, and develop this sector. So having fish meal plants is part of the policy objectives of government, that we must have fish processing plants, including fish meal plants. I'm not here to advocate for the fish meal plants, but it is our policy objectives. You go around the sub-region, all the countries, they have got fish meal plants, they have got other fish processing plants.
But again, you've
You
got
go
lots
to
of
other
criticisms
countries, they
against
have
them.
14 to 15 fish meal plants.
But you have lots
Others
of
have
criticisms
47.
against that.
Pardon?
There are lots of criticisms against that.
Of course.
Recently, you
Of
have
course, of course.
articles in The Guardian, the BBC,
Of course.
or Reuters.
Of
They're
course.
talking about how they're depleting
Of
the
course.
fish stock.
They they had an
West
interview with
Africa.
me, and I told them the policy objectives of government. I highlighted the importance of the sector in the overall national socio-economic development. So these fish meal plants, including other fish processing plants, are contributing towards the economic development of this country.
Okay.
These people must know.
Okay.
You go to the factories, you see our young sisters, brothers working there, being employed genuinely and being paid, taking care of their families. This is what we want in this country. These fish meal plants have got approval from government, including the fisheries sector, the fisheries department. These fish meal plants were approved before the advent of this government.
That is it. So some
So
people
we
might
cannot
question
come
its
and say we are
prudence.
going to close them. We cannot do that. These people were authorized by the government of the Gambia to operate in the fisheries sector. They have got all the necessary approvals. So now,
Well,
as
at some point they were shut down.
As a responsible,
So,
yes.
yeah, at some point they were shut down, so there might have been, there was certainly some laxity somewhere because they were shut down because
My
apparently
background,
there was
okay,
something
let me
wrong.
tell you now, my background is on food safety and quality management. That's my background. That's where I got my PhD on. As a fish inspector or a food inspector, when a company is complying, you don't close it down. You encourage that company to comply until it is fully compliant. You see. So the measures taken by the NEA then was to give the establishment the time to comply and meet the requirements.
Okay, let me just bring
So when companies are complying, you don't close them, you encourage them.
how do you respond to that?
Yeah, as he said, I'm not very particular about this exportation. I'm very concerned about the environment. But as he's mentioned about these exportations, as average Gambian today, we cannot eat fish. Gambia, the size is very small. We cannot invite all these companies come and take all our resources. If you're in C4, you see containers moving from these factories in large numbers, 2 containers, 40-foot containers. If we don't mind, in 10 years to come, Gambia will not have fish here. I'm sorry to say. The way we are handling the things, I cannot understand. Go to Tanje. September, I even see newspaper, they are complaining the lack of fish because large number of the fishing machine noises. Fish doesn't like too much noise. Gambia, the size is small. Let's try to manage. Otherwise, we will not have fish.
Yes, so Dr. Banja, there's an issue there. Let me just ask you this question.
Okay.
There's an issue there in many ways. We've seen so many different complaints that now with these fish meal factories, so some of these fishers who go out to catch their fish, they would prefer to take it to the factories. That's where they would sell them. So the local market. So because of the little that remains, then the prices will be high. They're complaining about that all the time.
Well,
so
we have always been having meeting with fisheries stakeholders, and we have always been encouraging them to have strong and viable organizations. Once they have strong and viable organizations, we will be able to work together to co-manage. We believe in co-management, where government, together with the stakeholders and partners, will come together to manage the resources. This is what we believe in. This is the policy. This is what we implement. Coming to his point, fisheries, like any other natural resources, has to be managed sustainably in order to continue to benefit us. These fish meal plants, the raw material that they use are the pelagic resources. Surface water resource, mainly Sardinella, Bonga. the mackerels. We do scientific survey every year to determine the stock level. This resources, particularly Sardinella, is jointly shared between Gambia, Senegal, and Mauritania.
Yes, can you just take a quick break? We'll just hold on to that thought. Sir, just hold on to that thought. We'll be back. We'll just take a quick break there.
With so many things to do in a single day, it's important to have a network you can trust. When there's family and friends to connect with and business calls to make, you need a network that is reliable and fast. Talk longer, browse faster, go farther, and roam wider. When your network is solid, the world is your oyster. QCell, your trusted network in the Gambia.
Hello, welcome back to the Viewpoint. Today I've got two guests. I'm the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries, and the Chairman of Home for Wild, an organization that is dedicated to the protection of the wild. Just before the break, Dr. Banja, we were talking about, well, you said the artisanal fisheries groups, you've been encouraging them to form very strong associations.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have said that because this is very important. Once they are organized, we can work together, we can support them to develop their capacities in the various disciplines in the fisheries, including the management of the resources at the community level. This is what we call territorial use rights. You see, it is very important. But I was telling you that the species that they depend on is jointly shared. The Gambia and Senegal, we jointly share the Sardinella, which is the principal raw material really used in this process in plants. We are conscious of overfishing, overcapacity. We are equally conscious of the impact of climate change on fisheries.
Okay,
But
well,
fisheries, like any other natural resources, if you want to compare the status now as opposed to 25, 30 years, it's a big difference. Anthropogenic activities, population increase, the demand for resources will come up. So we have to be very rational in order to ensure that these resources are there today, tomorrow, and the day after.
yes, but that's why some people say that we should really protect ourselves because of all of these threats. I'm coming up. Mr. Minte,
Yes.
I mean, you've had the Permanent Secretary. They've got the policy that is really pushing the interest of Gambians. What problems do you have with that?
I think policy is important, but before making the policy, you have to consult the people on the ground to know exactly what they want.
But that's what they've said. They've
Yes.
been doing that.
No, the
They
problem is,
haven't?
no, the people on the ground are always against it. We hear them from all over newspaper. I'm not that area. Even me personally, I'm not supporting the idea of signing a contract with Senegal. I'm sorry. Senegal has a river, we have a river. A tiny country is signed. Whatever fish they catch here, they put DK. Whenever go to Tanya, you find DK, all Senegal vehicle. They all took in all our fish. We
But
don't have
again, what's
fish.
wrong with signing anything with Senegal? After all, we're almost entirely
Wait,
surrounded by Senegal. Can we avoid
No, I'm
having
not saying
certain
avoid. If we look at our size, the resources we have, why are we signing a contract like any fish catch here, we go to Senegal to go and sell
Okay,
it?
what are the dangers? What do
The
you think
danger
are the
exploitation
dangers?
will be higher, and income generation, like, it will be good for the government side, I can say, but the poor people will be able to buy.
How do you respond to that, Dr.
No,
Manda?
I'm sorry, he's talking about an area that he doesn't know, much. honestly.
So what's the state of affairs?
Look, I have said we are conscious of the depleting marine resources. This is why we have made measures to ensure that we protect our resources, but also we diversify into other type of fishing, fish farming. The Gambia is blessed with fresh water, with brackish water, and with marine water. These are all ideal environment for fish farming. So as a government, what we are doing is to promote the development of aquaculture in this country, fish farming. But let me also tell him that government, we do not just sit down in the blues and come up with policies. We dialogue with stakeholders.
But that's what he's questioning.
Even for the NDP,
people.
the National Development Plan, it went through a consultative process at the policy level, at the technical level, and even at the local level. They were all consulted as far as fisheries sector is concerned.
So that was what government did.
This I can say.
Because I would like to think that you're not part of the government, you're a civil servant. We tend to make a distinction between the administrators, the civil servants, and the policymakers, the politicians, those who form the governments. After all, this government can go, another one would come, and you will still be permanent secretary.
The policies are more or less the same. All right? The policies are generally the same, but what I'm telling you...
So you were part of formulating the policy, our fisheries policy?
Exactly. We were part and parcel of those who really came up with the NDP, the National Development Plan for the fisheries sector. And that went through a consultative process. And the NDP, the goal, the mission and the vision of the NDP are aligned with the policy objectives of the fisheries sector.
Do we know, for instance, with these fish meal factories, do you know, for instance, how much fish, how much it takes to produce their fish meals? Do we know the capacity, the quantity that they're taking out of our seas? Do we have any idea?
Well, right now, we cannot tell you the quantity, but...
So there's no audit in place, is that it?
But going forward, we are assigning our technicians there to be able to monitor the quantity of raw material coming in for processing. We are going to implement that to be able to determine the quantity. But look, we do surveys every year.
Now. They've been operating now
we
for a long time.
We do surveys every year.
The first one was here from 2016. It's now 2019. We should have known this, surely.
No, my dear. Government, it doesn't work like that. We have our challenges as well. We have our challenges. But what I want you to understand, we know virtually the stock level of the pelagic resources because annually we conduct acoustic survey to determine the biomass. So we do not just manage the resources in the blues like that. We have to be guided by technical and scientific data and information. This is what is guiding us.
So when you look at the stock, how do you categorize them? I mean, surely some of the species might be endangered, may be overexploited. For instance, according to FAO, bonga, for instance, is overexploited. So do we still allow
we can allow it to regenerate. We can allow the stock level to regenerate. We can come up with other measures, like having what you call protected areas to allow for the breeding and spawning of fish to regenerate.
But if the auditing is not robust, then these protected zones, they will just flout them. They will just flout some of these rules.
No. We also have a responsibility to protect the resources against illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, which is happening both at the industrial level and the artisanal subsector level.
Perhaps the fear is that some people are saying that because of what the Chinese are giving us, we wouldn't dare go against some of their companies so that they could do things that they shouldn't be doing, and yet you have these political factors that would allow them to get away with things.
No, I beg to differ. I have had meeting with the ambassador of China. He has made it categorically clear that the investors should comply and respect our laws.
They have to be enforced. They have to be audited.
They have to
Otherwise,
comply.
they can just ignore all of the laws.
They have to comply with national legislation, national laws, like any other investor. Look, those days are gone when government will just go and nationalize private investment. That is unethical. That cannot be done. There are set guidelines and procedures that we should follow. You cannot just nationalize or seize a private investment like that. That will not, what image will that have for our country?
Perhaps it's not to seize, but to make sure that you have a good deal.
We have
Perhaps
seen,
one doesn't have, we have to seize it, but have a good deal.
We have seen private
investments,
private sector investments being nationalized. Right now, government is being sued by private investors for illegally stepping in, taking their property, which is not correct. These people are authorized to fish. In Gambia, we only have 3 fish meal plants. Go to other countries, they have 47. Others, they have 14.
Well, we are much
but
smaller.
we are very, very...
Forward, we are much
for
smaller.
us, the priority, honestly, is for the artisanal small-scale operators. Our sisters, our mothers, our aunts.
But they are the ones
they
complaining.
Are the priority.
But they are also the ones complaining. Look, in many ways. But
how are they complaining? What we have to encourage is the participation of Gambians in the fisheries sector. This is the bottom line.
Okay.
This is the bottom line.
We'll bring in Mr. Minty here. Yes, so Mr. Minty, that's really a point, because you have other groups who tell you that they're getting employment and they can sell their catch, for higher prices. So you have quite a huge swathe of people who also like the fact that these fish factories, they exist. What do you say to that?
Yeah, for the fish factory side, I don't want to go much detail before. I'm talking about environment. My concern is...
But again, if you're concerned with the environment, that's really part of it, because we're talking about pollution and all the rest of it, yes.
It's mentioned that they need to have a reserve where the breeding also can come up. Do we have the plan? Where do we have the plan? I am not a marine scientist, or that's not my area. I'm specialized on aviation fuel, jet fuel. I have interest in environment. Beside my official job, I have to do something about because environment is everybody's responsibilities.
It's cross-cutting.
So if what I learned from, not scientifically, some of these fish around these small creek-like rivers, they come and lay eggs. When they grow up, they go back to the sea. If that point where all the fish are dying, do you think other fish will go back to the river or ocean? Another issue, the reason why I suspect the fishing meal factory, when we learn the millions of fish are dying, we suspect there's a factory in Katong. What can happen in Katong? We went there. We went to the backyard. We found that the septic tank is open. Whenever it flows, it just flows like that. When the water flows, the dirty water from wastewater from there, it all flows to where? It seems like a channel going to the Allen River. Because at that point in time, when the wastewater flushed to the river, the high tide will push everything to where? The last end of the river. So that's why C4, Katong, Berendin, Sala, and the rest are suffering. Fish are dying, but the Katong side, they are not experiencing things like that. They have to manage their waste. That's our main concern. They have to manage it. If we allow all the waste from this factory dump to this small river, what's going to happen? Not only for the fish dying, now after realizing fish dying, we realize the birds are dying. It can happen to human beings. It happened in China, Japan. People die. The bacteria from this waste, the fish start eating. From eating, the people also started the fish. 10, 15 people start dying like normal.
Yes, let me just come to Dr. Banjo.
Yes.
You said that you're really here for the interest of, for instance, the artisanal fisheries industry, isn't it? But I've got a quote here from Dauda Sen, a marine biologist, who said that he's also part of this Gambia Artisanal Fisheries Development Agency, who said that actually information is very, very hard to come by when it comes to data, the Chinese factories, they're really not giving out any data at all. They're quite closed. So nobody really knows what they're doing. And you yourself have sort of confirmed that there's not much auditing structures in place yet. So there are Gambian scientists who are quite worried. And there's another person, Ahmad Manjang. He also wrote a piece and said that now because of we're seeing dead turtles and all sorts of marine life just washing up. Even the last time there was a baby whale. So these things are unusual according to these experts.
Look, if you can, I cannot tell you how much quantity of fish, Atlantic seafood, is bringing in. I cannot determine that.
But is there a way of finding out? One would have
There
thought
is,
that we would work
always
out. Always
we
a way
can
of
get
find out.
data. We can get data. We can get data of the raw product. We can also have data on the final product.
But why haven't we?
Okay? But what we have data on is the catch statistics that we do monthly in the landing sites. How much fish is landed at each of the landing sites? We carry out catch assessment survey. We have not intervened in any private sector establishment to find out daily, to record daily how much that company is bringing in, how much that company is taking out.
Maybe it doesn't have to be daily, just have a structure, an audit structure. Weekly, monthly, I do not know.
Look, this is why I'm saying,
it depends.
this is why I'm saying, going forward, we will be monitoring, we will strengthen the monitoring, including, of course, data, the availability of data. That not only this fish meal, I don't know why this fish meal, the problem is all about fish meal. Why? The problem is all about fish meal. But we will get data, we will get information as to the amount of raw material that is coming in and the finished product that is going out. We can have data on all these factories.
But in the meanwhile,
in
they
the
just
meanwhile,
continue to
in the meanwhile, they are operating, and for not having that, we cannot tell them to stop. For not getting the data from them, tell them to stop operations.
So what are we going to do with
What
the local
we
economy?
are going to
Local
do,
economy
what
is suffering.
we are going to do
The
is
female-
for Fisheries Department to have a staff there who will be recording the data. That's what we will do.
But in the meantime, many economists around these areas, tourist operators, they've been complaining because of this stench. Their guests, their customers will leave, and then when it comes to the female, the fishing, those who process fish, I mean, they are also complaining. So there's a lot of
For
complaints
every reaction,
around.
there is opposite and equal reaction. There will be those who will not be in favor. But there are many people who are in favor. You go and talk to the people in these communities. Ask them whether the coming up of the fish meal plants, whether it has got any socio-economic impact on their lives.
But some people are saying that they
They
are.
will tell
so
you.
we're going to have to balance
So-
between those it favors and those it
so
doesn't.
what do you want us to do? To ignore the benefits that ordinary Gambian women are getting?
You address the grievances. One doesn't have to ignore that, but
Or-
one can address the grievances.
Or to close these factories? What do you want us to do?
But this is it.
We cannot close these factories, definitely.
But still there are
But what we
grievances
have
you
to
must
do,
address.
what we have to do is Gambians to increase our participation in the sector. This is what we have to do to take control of our resources rather than being exploited by foreigners.
Mr. Minte, how large is your followership? I mean, in your community, because we were just talking about the number of people who might be in support of this and those who might not be. What is your impression? How large is your organization?
When you talk about the community in general, for these fish meal programs, most of the people in Combos didn't appreciate it. For me, as environment, we are not against fish meal. That's not our area. But what is important for our site, to make sure that they manage their waste. I want my brother to help us, to promise us the waste will be managed. It will not be washed to our river. Our fear is these are chemicals. It can cause people to die in large numbers. Nobody knows. Scientifically, nobody knows. We don't know what type of waste are they flushing to our side. They have to control. If you go to the fishing meal factory, you cannot believe it. We cannot just allow people to run the things like that. We don't manage them.
But the NEA said that they had done their assessment, and that's not quite true. So do you disagree with the NEA?
Let me come. I disagree. I invite you go to Carlton today.
Why do you disagree with
because
the NEA? Have you done your rival studies?
Let me come. We are not scientists to do all, but what we do, we went there and see at their backside, and they see how the septic tank is open. When it flush, it goes outside. There is no control. And secondly, we took sample from there. We went to C4, we took sample. Now we're doing our own because we are waiting. We never hear from them.
So you have scientists within?
Yes. We have some lecturer at the university at the Gambia College. Just now, they said, let's all take another sample from Manira Laming. We went to Laming, we went to Denton Bridge. We took another one from the Brewfoot. And we went to Tanje also. We sent him back to because we cannot be seated and waiting. We don't know what's going to happen to our community people. When the people die, that's when people come and respond. We don't want to. Prevention is better than cure.
That's surely a concern that you must address.
Look, we have an open door policy. Our doors are open for consultations. We are all in this together. Environment is a cross-cutting issue. Government doesn't work in isolation, and no ministry works in isolation. When there is a problem, all the concerned agencies should come together, pool their resources, and make sure it is resolved. The same situation happened at Gunjur. NEA intervened, we all intervened. They complied. If this is the situation at Karton, let us know. Let us be put into the picture. The NEA, they can collaborate. We are collaborating with them. We will go there and make sure they comply, just like what they did to Gunjur. If at all, look, I have said it at the beginning, don't jump to conclusions. We don't jump to conclusions without not doing our thorough investigation.
Yeah, but here we make a difference.
Because
we must
to
make
say
a distinction
that
between causes and
these
effects.
birds or these fish are dying from this fish meal because of the effect of this fish meal plants, I think this is a PhD thesis that warrants thorough investigation.
Yes, but we must make a distinction.
Yes,
but if at all there is a problem.
Let me come up. Yeah. We are not saying, we suspect. When something happens, you must have a suspect. Yes. And our suspect is that if this fish is poisoned, they die. When they bad it, they also may die. And we start bad dying. What if in the local people, what going to, we believe that maybe it could be a poison where there is no farming activity within the riverside now. No farming. Where will the chemical come from now? That's a question.
But
and when we went to the place, we find the waste of the water is going to the river. This signs that this is, we have never experienced. This can be the possible causes.
But sorry, so but this is it.
Well,
you may not know.
Yes.
You may not know the cause of it, but you're just seeing effects. They are seeing effects. They could see with their own eyes these things happening. And they may not know the cause of it, but that's a concern.
Yes, that is a concern.
It's a concern. Like that.
I quite agree with him. It's a concern. We are not going to relent. Fisheries Department will go there. Other agencies will go there. We will even visit the fish meal plant. If at all they are not in compliant, NEA will tell them so that they can be compliant. You see, this is the issue. Problems are bound to happen, but when they happen, you work together and solve these problems. That's what development is all about.
Are you reassured by that, Mr. Minto?
So the problem is, even the stakeholders still now, as I'm aware, they don't have a meeting. Stakeholder meeting. I was told by a senior man, I said, still now, when I send in I-40, he asked me where. I said, well, I'm even surprised to see they're going to have a meeting on those things. Please, let's leave office and go to the ground and see. We cannot be sitting in office, I'm sorry to say. It's 30 kilometers not far from our office. We have fuel, we have car. Why can't we go around and see? When will you make a plan? We have to make plan before operation. We cannot leave in people to come and explore everything. At the end, our indigenous species are all dying. We have a call to answer the next generation.
This is what we stand for. I have told him, and I'm telling him in my capacity as permanent secretary, that we are not going to sit down. Action will be taken to see and find out what is the cause or the possible causes for what has happened. We will continue to monitor. I have said it, the water quality sample results indicate that too much high level of contamination, predominantly by the coliform bacteria. But the scientists have also said that further investigation needs to be carried out. Further testing has to also be conducted.
Yes, but there are other surveys as well from other scientists who are saying that there's a depletion of this pelagic species, as you call it, along the whole coast from Morocco coming down to Mauritania and Senegal and the Gambia.
It's not only the pelagic. It's not only the pelagic. It's not because of overfishing and overcapacity coupled with IUU and climate change.
That's the illegal and unregulated and
unreported fishing.
Fisheries.
You see, which is a global problem as well. But I'm not going to deviate from the issue. I have said it. We are coming up with measures to ensure that our stock level regenerates, but also to diversify, to go into fish farming. We are going into fish farming. Right now, with support from the Food and Agricultural Organization, they are helping us to have 2 fish meal plants, to have 2 fish hatcheries for the small fingerlings. We have mapped out all the potential sites in this country, potential aquaculture sites in the Gambia. We have mapped out all. We are going to have 2 fish hatcheries. We are going to have 2 fish meal plants. One is going to be in Western Division.
When?
It's already on. The engineers are here. They are working on it. It's an advanced stage now. It is an advanced stage.
Because there are some experts who say that unless we begin to have our own fish processing factories, then we will never sort these things out, because you're going to have these foreign trawlers.
Yes,
unfortunately, that is the problem.
Unfortunately, the fisheries sector is predominantly, particularly this part, the Atlantic coast and the industrial fisheries subsector, are predominantly foreign dominated. All the trawlers are foreign dominated.
What are we doing to
What do we do as a government?
To indigenize some of these areas? What are we doing?
The environment is there. If they have the resources to invest, what is ideal, I tell you, Mr. Mboj, is to have Gambians who have their own fishing trawlers, to have Gambians who have their own fish processing plants, whereby only Gambians, we will harvest our resources, process, add value to these resources.
But do we have the enabling environment for Gambians to come in?
Of course.
So what would you mean by what would be the enabling environment?
We don't have Gambians, and we cannot sit down.
Is it legislation? What would constitute an enabling environment?
The legislation is there. The legislation, duty waiver concessions are there. You understand? And there is no delay. We do not, because of bureaucracy, there is less bureaucracy now, as far as the fisheries sector is concerned. There is less bureaucracy. What we have to encourage is for Gambians to increase their participation in the sector. Look at the fishermen. I was at Gunjur with the Honorable Minister some time back. This was last year. We went to Gunjur, the fish meal plants. We saw people loading and unloading fish, including a qualified teacher from Sierra Leone, a qualified teacher. He told us he teaches every day in school, and after school, he goes to the beach to load and unload fish. And at the end of the month, he will save $12,000 from that activity. And this is a qualified teacher. A qualified teacher. This is just an example. But how many Gambians will be willing to do that? How many? We have to change our attitude.
That's it. But
we have to change. Look, we have to be very frank and open.
Yeah, that's true. I support the idea for that point.
It is a very important sector.
Change our attitude.
It is a very important sector.
Attitude.
All right?
Yes, I mean,
so
what you said is true, but we've also read reports that saying that what we having right now is just a bubble. You have some people are, of course, enjoying, some of the benefits to have these things here. But again, it's a bubble. Sooner or later, it will burst because the longer-term problems really outweigh the short-term gains.
What do you mean, the longer-term?
Overfishing, fish depletion, that is the problem.
And some
people are saying...
anthropogenic activities, including pollution and climate change, we have to consider the impact of climate change in fisheries. People must have to understand that. I hear people saying, in those days, we'll not go very far and catch a lot of fish, which is true, which is very true. But in those days, what was the population?
But that's why we
should
take care of our
the
home
demand
market
for
first.
resources. Because of population increase, demand for resources naturally will increase. This, if it is not managed properly, can contribute to overexploitation. But notwithstanding, we have to come up with alternatives. We have to come up with alternatives. We have to also improve the management of these resources, which are subjected to overexploitation.
And I say protect the little, given that you said that because of climate change, things are changing.
We have to understand that. It is very, very important. And I must thank you for organizing this program. We are going forward, we are going to intensify our sensitization for the people to know what we are doing, what are our constraints, what are our challenges, and the way forward.
Thank you.
We will continue to do. But this is a very important sector, and it requires collaboration, participation together.
Yes, you've made your point very clear. What would you want to see them do? He's just mentioned what they're going to do, but what are the imperatives as far as you are concerned?
Well, my concern as environment is concerned, they have to manage and control. They have to be in control of our resources. They have to be in control of the operation to know what is happening on the ground. And second, for fish farming, the proportion, we need to have fish farming. What I learned, the Commonwealth, they exchange the Malayanas from Malaysia and Asia to Africa. They took fish from here to Asia, tilapia. But you go to Asia, they're exporting big tilapia to America. When I ask the guy, why this big tilapia? He said from Asia. They have a big fish farm. We have to create big fish farming system now, agriculture, fishery. Now we should be talking about 50 years. Still now we're going to have a standard one. When will we settle down? We need to change, not for me, all of us as a Gambia, we need to change our attitude towards the state to develop a tiny country like Gambia. We cannot develop. When will we settle down? This is a question. Attitude is very important. What you mentioned about for fish loading and offloading. Gambia youth, we need to engage ourselves. We cannot be just sitting down. People coming outside, they took all the resources. Every work cannot be white-collar job.
We've really come to the end of the program.
Really? So you have not allowed me to...
You've made your point very clear.
No,
or maybe the last one, what did they say? When are we going to settle down? Just, you've got like 30 seconds.
This is
when are we going to settle down?
My dear, this is national development. It's not easy. But we are not going to sit down. We will work. We will continue to work. We will continue to engage Gambians. And we are talking of a sector, really, which we all know can contribute or has the potential to contribute meaningfully to the overall economic development. But let me tell you
without
this.
depleting our stock.
Let me tell you
Protecting
this.
the environment
in
for
the
the
last
future.
in the last few months back, with support from Sea Shepherd, this is an international NGO working with us, the Ministry of Fisheries, the Fisheries Department and the Navy. We were able to do a lot of arrests in our waters, and it's predominantly done by authorized vessels. So I'm telling you, we are not going to sit down. As a government, as a government, we must continue to work to protect our resources.
I think when he meant by when are we going to settle down was when are we going to be reassured that we are protecting our own.
We are protecting. I am assuring him that we are not sitting down. We are doing our best, but we need to work with them to protect our resources.
Yes, thank you very much. We've come to end. I hope that we'll get a good deals in working with them. I thank the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries, Dr. Bamba Banja, and I thank Mr. Ibrahim Aminta, the Chairman of Home for Wild, an environmental group dedicated to protecting the wild. Thanks for joining us on The Viewpoint this week. See you next time. Bye-bye.